This is NASA's Vehicle Assembly Building, the largest building in the world by volume, and I'm building the most accurate recreation of this in 1:1 scale in Minecraft with all the internal rooms and structures. Today, we're going to discover and build one of the crazy solutions NASA uses to recover and reuse their rockets, and then we're going to uncover and create 3 more rooms in the low bay area. Hi, I'm Fernando, and I'm currently standing in the low bay area of the VAB. This area has checkout cells, which are used to temporarily store and look over parts of the rockets as they are delivered before being carried down the transfer aisle by the crane over here. As we move down the transfer aisle, we get to the high bay areas. Now the VAB has 4 main high bays. High bay areas 1, 2, 3 and 4. In high bay 1, we created the Saturn V rocket for the Apollo 11 mission, which was the mission that landed people on the moon back in 1969. The next rocket I want to build is a reusable rocket created for the Space Shuttle program, which ran for 30 years from 1981. And I want to build that right here in High Bay 3. Over the course of the program, there were 5 different shuttles that ran: Columbia, Challenger, Discovery, Atlantis and Endeavour. Tragically, both Columbia and Challenger exploded for different reasons. Columbia was actually collected and stored right here in the VAB, over here in Tower A, in the Columbia Research and Preservation Office. I have an entire video where I reconstruct the insides of this area, which you should check out. So we're going to start with the white bits on the side of the Space Shuttle, called the Solid Rocket Boosters, or the SRBs. Now these are made up of a number of different segments, and each segment has propellant built into it. And they're actually hollow as well. So this black stuff here is the propellant, and then inside it's hollow. And the idea of this is as the rocket takes off and as it's flying, it burns from the inside out the whole length of the rocket, so it doesn't change the weight distribution. So let's build this in creative. The solid rocket booster is 45 meters tall and 3.7 meters in diameter. So I've made this 3 meters across, or 3 blocks across, and I've added some walls into each of the corners to try and make it look a little bit more rounded. And it contains around 450,000 kilograms of propellant. At the top there's some electronics where I've put the copper blocks and 3 parachutes. So essentially, the space shuttle takes off. Once the solid rocket boosters have run out of propellant, they separate from the space shuttle, the parachutes deploy, they fall back down and they land in the ocean, where NASA actually have specialised vessels to go and retrieve them. They have one of each of these vessels for each of the solid rocket boosters, the Freedom Star and the Liberty Star. So I found the dimensions on an old NASA website, but it has terms like beam, depth and draft. And so I was trying to work out what these were. I found on Wikimedia a diagram here which explains that the draft is the amount that's underwater, so the distance from the waterline to the bottom of the boat, and the beam is the width of this. So if we plug that into our numbers, we know we need a boat that's 54 blocks long, there's 3.5 blocks underwater, 1 block above water, and the width of the boat is 11. Using those dimensions, I know that we want to be 3 blocks, 3.5 blocks, and then to the waterline. So 1, 2, 3.5. So that's going to be the bottom. We know that we want to be 11 wide. And then we'll make a shape of the hull itself. So now I've got a rough shape of it. We know that it wants to be 54 long. So we'll just stack that in one direction. Now from this point, I would kind of sculpt out the shape of the hull. So let's skip that, jump into survival, and we'll show you the final product that I built. So this is my interpretation of the Liberty Bell in Minecraft at the correct dimensions. Some of the things that stuck out to me, and there's a number of videos you can find online of some people walking around and talking about it. I'll talk to some small points as we go through. So here is the decompression chamber for the divers if they have any problems. As you come through here, they've got their eating area. Through here, there's a kitchen, a little fridge, I think. If we go downstairs, there's the engine room, and I couldn't find too many exact details about this engine room. So I've just put a lot of various bits and pieces, and I'm hoping to kind of get the essence. So one of the things I do is I watch a lot of videos, get a sense for what's going on, and then I kind of try and clear my mind and just build things that I think might make sense and kind of the same, take all the influence from what I've seen and build something. So this is the workshop area where they can fix things, and they talked about that. If we go upstairs, we can get all the way up to the area that they drive the ship, and there's lots of kind of knobs and levers on the dashboard here. They did talk about having some things to operate the crane and a view of the back from here. More boats for the dive team. And just various bits of barrels strapped down, and I like to think these square item frames are life preservers that they could throw overboard to help. The rockets splash down in the North Atlantic Ocean. Each vessel goes and retrieves a rocket, pulls it all the way back, up the Banana River, up into the canal, and to the vehicle assembly building, where they can be cleaned up, refitted and refueled. So the actual retrieval mechanism is kind of neat. So when they arrive at the rockets, they'll be sitting in the ocean, pointing upwards, and they'll send dive teams down underwater with specialized plugs, which will actually plug up the bottom, and then they have a specifically designed air pump sitting on board of the vessel, and they'll fill it up with air, in which case it will rise up and then fall over like a tree, and then they can attach to it and drag it all the way back. Now, back at the VAB, there's a couple more rooms that I've worked out where they are, the imaging lab and the viewing area. So if we go back to the Library of Congress, there was a survey done, and we can look up the description of the VAB from that. A key section in here talks about the third floor of Area K being an imaging lab. So it's got raised tile floors, acoustic tile ceilings, there's 2x4 fluorescent lights. Next to that room there's a small office. It's carpeted with an acoustic tile ceiling, and next to that room is a projection and viewing area, which has a movie screen and brown curtains. Also talks about there being a projector and other video equipment along the rear wall, and that refers to some photos. The first photo we have is the imaging lab data collection area on floor 3, room 8, and we have a view facing north. So that means that this wall here faces towards the high bays. And if we count the ceiling tiles, we know that they're 2x4, and we can see that there's actually about 13x10 tiles, and converting that through to metric, I can calculate that this room is roughly 8x9 meters wide. Another exciting thing that I found is that this lab is actually still in use today, and it's called the Advanced Imaging and Analysis Laboratory. And I've actually been able to find some photos of the same room, but in colour. So you can see those black tiles and that black ceiling, and a lot of that same server rack area over here. This is where NASA process all of the photos and images of the launches and various different space exploration projects that they do. The other photos we have are for the imaging lab viewing area, room 3K9. Now we've got two different angles for this and the direction they're facing, so using the same ceiling tile trick, we can calculate that this room is around 9x11 meters. We actually have a colour picture as well of the viewing lab, and we can see the colour of the chairs and the carpet here, but we already knew that the curtains were brown. So remembering that there's a small office in the middle that we don't have a picture of, but we do know the rough size of each of these two rooms, based on Don McKay's original Moonport illustration, this is Area K over here, and we can see the layout of the third floor, so it must be these three rooms here. So let's build this thing. Okay, so this is my interpretation of the imaging lab and viewing areas, 3K8 and 3K9, and some various details that I've created. So if I use my blueprint mod to pull up some reference images, here you can see I've done little things like the clipboard on the bench here. I've put a trapdoor there to represent that. I've got this white, maybe these are computers here, and then these, which I believe are computers over here. They've tried to do this corner desks here with some of the chairs and some of the screens. There's a grey curtain area at the back, which I've put in with grey banners there. I've even tried to do this whiteboard here. Moving on through, we've got the small office. We have no reference pictures of this, but this is what I believe a small office might look like. Coming through to the viewing area. Up the top here, there's the projector hanging off the ceiling on this bracket. There's a TV monitor in the corner, which I've just put a hanging sign for. You can see those brown curtains at the back. And for the chairs, we know they're kind of orangey, so I've chosen to use polished granite. Coming around this direction, one final reference picture we have. So we can see the two projectors at the back. From this angle, you can see the projector, which I've tried to put a bit of glass in front of the slab. You can see some of the tables on the side. On this wall, there's what looks like a chart, and I've tried to find the most appropriate painting that I can to match that, as well as getting these doors in the right place. That's all for today. I highly encourage you to check out the Columbia Research and Preservation Office video. I've put a bunch of links in the description to various sources I've used. Make sure you like the video, subscribe, and leave some feedback, ideas, and encouragement in the comments. Have a great day.